War at the table. Before we start the interview, Rob, just before we get going, I just want to say that having seen the pig over your shoulder there, son, and the fact that the pig has got his mask on.
Yeah, I tried to explain to the pig about his God-given amendment rights and all that stuff where he didn't have to wear a mask, but, you know, he explained to me that it was very important to him for his personal beliefs to take the path of being safe. So I didn't argue with him.
He's a responsible unicorn pig.
Yeah, he's a responsible pig.
And I like that.
See, people think pigs are greedy, just take all, gimme type animals, but not him. That's why we keep him kicking around.
Not that pig.
No, he's worried about me. He's just speaking it on the show. He's a fan.
Yeah, and we're a fan of him. Because, in fact, I'm going to say without the pig, I'm not sure it'd be the same show.
No, probably not.
Now, I know obviously you're the kind of guy, we've spoken about it before, that you don't respect or like the kind of guys that, you know, have set up a YouTube channel and are just out there for commerciality and that kind of thing. And I respect that massively. However, I'm just going to plug out of this new shirt. Guys, check this mother. Get out. Yes! Hardcore arm wrestling. Can you see that, Rob? Hey? Fucking hell, eh?
Who is that?
Hey, look at that. Don't worry about the image, son. That's not important. What is important is that this bad boy is going to be, hey, no joke, a limited edition, because we're going to test some shirts out. So the hardcore arm wrestling shirt, which we'd had a few requests for, it was a shirt that used to exist and has come back, but it's come back better with better quality. And the link is going to be in the description to the show, guys. So if you want your very own hardcore arm wrestling shirt, mother fluffers, one of a limited edition, and I'm thinking probably 50 is a good number. There'll be 50 of them made.
If you sell it with pre-sweated up by Neil Pickup, it's got at least double in price.
Double in price, then.
But wait, I want to do a little correction there to that. It's not that I don't respect the YouTube channels, because I think YouTube's a wonderful outlet. It's a wonderful thing. If people make money from it, I don't begrudge them. What I don't like is the fakedom that it brings. It takes away a lot of the genuine. I think people are more worried about how to gain followers or how not to lose them, so it changes their actions and what they do and what they don't do. And again, these are people making money at it. I'm not. I'm a guy on the sidelines I'm the guy in the bleachers telling the quarterback how he should be shucking and jiving. But for just little old me, one out of the 8 billion people in the world, I think it does take away some of the genuine views and reality of what we're getting, because it's not always, but it's a lot of it's subscription and viewer driven. So, you know, that's the side of it that I think is ugly. And there's a lot of fake political correctness and, you know, whatever, just to maintain a viewership. And hey, if you're making a living that way, God bless you, but it's not my cup of tea.
Well, I'm going to jump in there to say at the moment, I haven't made a goddamn thing of any merchandise sales because of the fact that I have literally no idea how to do it, set it up, or how it works. But this is the first, hopefully, of a few other things very similar to this. So remember, guys, if you want one of these, links in the description. Going to throw a little shot in right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Vigeant Jnr. Check that bad boy out. It's the first ever limited edition, high quality, comfortable feel, versatile, supernatural strength channel hardcore arm wrestling shirt. I say versatile, it can be worn in so many scenarios, whether skiing, drinking beer, watching birds, watching football, street fighting, shagging or cow tipping. Yes, anytime, any occasion. And if you want one, ladies and gents, guess what? Links in the description. As you might expect, not necessarily the most technically efficient people in the world. Copy and paste that link into your browser, get it ordered. Look on the bright side, you're definitely not going to look any worse than I do, unless you too are a fat bastard. Hey, mate, no joke. The UK COVID must be pretty bad, because I'm actually pleased that because we're on this call that the pig has his mask on because of that. I may be highly contagious and just not know that I've got COVID, but I could, it could be going down this mic right here.
Yeah.
in there, and
Yeah. At least the pig's good.
Nobody wants anything to happen to that pig.
No.
Not at all. No, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Neil Pickup, the Fat Lad, with you in the mother fluffing house. And I'm joined by one of my very favourites in the arm wrestling world. Yep. It's my good mate, Rob Vigeant Jr. R.V.J. in the house, and it's been a while, Rob. It's been a while. It's been, what, 2 months?
Yeah, flying solo on this trip. I like it.
Yeah, you've I think it's probably 2 months since we've spoke, but you've been active on social media, because you come into social media, then go out of it, come in, go out.
Oh,
you went on with Devon, didn't you, recently?
Truth be told, Heather likes the social media presence and profile. And, of course, I think it's part of being relevant nowadays. So she more plays the buffer on all that. I'm not really in the social media. She'll run things by me as she sees fit, and I'll answer them. And then she's kind of like the person that will keep me from dipping off totally into the shadows, you know.
So, do you not how can you go and not watching any of the stuff that go, when there's a tournament on Facebook stream?
Yeah, I do. I watched that. I watched the recent boxing match. I watch some of the videos in Dubai, but I don't search things out because I don't know that they're out there. I haven't logged into my Facebook in probably since the summertime. So it's just for me, you know, there's stronger people out there. For me, the social media world makes me a more consumed and darker person for whatever reason it is. You know, if I was Donald Trump, I'd have definitely hit 10 nuke buttons by now and nuked half the world, because that kind of heat, I'm a temperamental person, and I admit it. And it carries over into my life. You start getting pissed off and having little, you know, you feel like you're defending yourself to people or arguing about shit, and then next thing you know, you're talking about religions and politics, and I don't need it. I don't need that. And I got 5 kids, and my time's spread thin enough that I'm a better person without the social media, but it's a very fine line where that's the motion of the sport and what we do. So to remain relevant, you kind of gotta at least get your toes in the water.
Mm. So let's start with a big one straight off the bat, because I know you like your new arm wrestlers or your emerging talent. You've been watching Morozov.
Who?
Morozov.
Nope, haven't heard of him.
Oh, the links shall be coming, Rob.
Okay.
I'll be sending you links over to that dude because he looks serious. But moving on from that then, because we don't want to dwell on something you haven't yet seen. Have you been following what's been going on in Dubai with Mike and Levan and any of these strength tests and stuff like that? I wanted to sort of get your... Because you've always been somebody who's been pretty outspoken on the whole strength test side of things and what may or may not be relevant. How do you see that kind of thing, mate? Are you impressed by any of that? Does it tell you anything you didn't know prior to Levan going over to Dubai, or not so much, really?
I think a lot of those tests are very finicky. Simple angles, like for the flat hand one, the Mazurenko handle one. At one point in time, he told Larry that he could bend his wrist to kind of help him move it. But if you look at the direction of the handle, as soon as you're not flat-handed, that handle is supposed to pull on your tips from a starting position. As soon as you bend it, now the handle starts coming this way, coming more through the palm. It's not his fingers. That whole move gets cheapened. It gets it's not even the same move anymore. So a lot of those moves and the angles, a simple little cheat in how you maneuver it could change something 10, 20 kilograms even. Yeah. You know, weight stacks, the way they're divided by twos, the numbers get all muddied as they start putting plates on it and having, you know, Aladdin back there holding the goddamn weights on the stack, and whatever goes on. Are they strong guys? There's no doubt about it. The numbers are probably what I would have expected, even though there was some fudgery. You know, Levan's a strong guy, but I do think that there's a lot to lose by not being the strongest guy in the room when you're Levan. So I think that playing the games and playing to the strengths, I don't know how. The only way I would believe a lot of that stuff is if I actually saw exactly how it worked with them on that day, on that machine, in that angle.
Do you do anything like that yourself?
Mazurenko did those videos, and every single guy he filmed got stronger progressively as I saw how the guy before him did it.
Yeah. Do you have any strength tests or gym tests that you do to sort of monitor your own levels? Is there anything that you put stall by in your own training?
Yeah. I got about I'd say about four or five things that I know if I'm feeling good, and they translate for me. There was a part in the video where Michael Todd had kind of like a thumb rolling type handle.
Yeah,
Levon wasn't really a big fan of it, you could tell. Yeah. But that all goes hand in hand with how you pull. Different people are going to pull different ways. Yeah. But, because that was Michael's best lift, he preached the gospel that was more like arm wrestling. The rest are just gauges. But that's not necessarily true, because for someone like myself or Levon or Oleg or Vitaly, those other lifts might be more indicative than what they were doing. So for me, I'll do similar lifts to those, and I'll know when I'm feeling good on a baseline. Here's where I feel good when I'm here, and if I'm doing more than that, probably much like Todd Hutchings pushes on things, and, Travis will hold his weight like this. People have Kino moves. I have those, but I do them. I try to be as diligent with myself to do it without lying to myself. It's nice to move more weight and feel great about yourself, but I don't want to be sucker punched going in somewhere thinking I'm 20% stronger, and in fact I'm not.
Yeah, so you sort of keep the lift very honest.
Yeah, and sometimes it hurts your ego, because there are things when you think you're getting stronger, you might be broken down, and you go to move a weight that was easy for you a month ago, and now it feels impossible. Mm-hmm. And that's such as the, let's not go down too deep a rabbit hole, but that's the woe of the natural arm wrestler. You're not always on the incline. Sometimes you hit a valley, and those are the frustrations that something I did easy for reps, a month later might be hard for one.
How close to arm wrestling are the exercises that you do, Rob? Are they very much on a table, in situ? And
what I try to do is, so you'll see those movements, for instance, even like the back pressure thing. I think people they start muddying that water because they move the weight by any means necessary. It's not really realistic to how you would apply the pressure to someone's arm or hand. I try to keep it as if exactly what I would feel if I was grabbing somebody, if Bart Wood was closing my hand, and how much pressure I could put up from that angle in that range of motion. Because if you got to get too far where you're like this to move something, the time it takes you to get there, the separation from your body, you're going to get hammered sideways and lose. All that weight you're moving means nothing. So I try to keep it as mimicking an arm wrestling match as possible, even though it's humbling. It's like strict curling or cheat curling. You get against the wall and you strict curl, it's going to be very humbling compared to what you can sling up. It's going to hurt your ego a little bit. So much like that, I keep it as mimicking as I can to be honest with myself, which is why when those lifts go up, I see an immediate translation. And it also comes down to your application. If you're pulling containment strength type movements, but you're not a containment puller, then that movement's garbage. What are you even doing it for? If you're a guy that's going to contain like this all day, and as soon as the rest guys go, you're going to bail out and go to the straps, well, what was this you were doing? Nothing.
How much time would you spend on working areas that aren't in your game now, or trying to refine areas of your game where you've traditionally had an issue or a small problem?
I would say my biggest issue in the past, we'll say since maybe I know where I got hurt. I got hurt at the arm wars I did with you and Marcio. Yeah, so my side pressure went down to 0. I had a torn rotator cuff. It went down to 0. And I recognized that I was still able to be a top 1 or 2 guy, basically only depending on where Todd Hutchings was in relation to me. I was still able with a torn rotator cuff, but I was killing people on a bicep with my hand and wrist. I didn't have a lot of side. So for me, knowing that side was such a game for him, I said, well, if I can have all the tools I have in comparable side pressure, and I noticed that I was giving a lot of people this center space to kind of run with me, and then I would kind of catch it. And it's hard to pull world-class competition from a defensive position all the time.
Yes, it is.
Especially in a tournament setting when you're getting some of the best guys in the world and you're going round after round.
It's definitely not advisable in that setting.
Right, you're taking shots on the chin.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I've tried to really tighten up my center table angles, whether it's this way, just kind of taking the slack and bringing it all, suffocating guys in the center of the table. And it's gotten better and better. Even in the years I haven't been arm wrestling, I can just feel my shoulders and body wanting to kind of, where it used to be here to get tight, you might feel that weirdness right in the starting line. I'm just yet to be able to break it out. But for me, I recognize straps were a weakness. It's a beautiful thing to be at a high level and recognize weaknesses, because then you're telling yourself, like, I'm only maybe at 50%. Could I get that? If I straighten that out, I might go like this.
Yeah.
Well, that's the weaknesses. I think they're beautiful.
It's an interesting one for you, because in the past, that one of the areas you'd had success with, probably your greatest North American adversary in Todd, was if you managed to command center and he went underneath and you straight on top of him.
Yeah.
That's where you have been successful a couple of times in the WL events. Is that something you were very consciously aware of and thinking, okay, that's something that I need to improve upon, capitalize upon? If I can create that situation where this all stays in control, whoever's pulling at me is aiming for the strap, lose a bit of integrity, straight up on top of them.
Yeah, I mean, moving forward, I do believe that if we start talking about toolboxes, he's known as the side pressure guy, but I don't think for a person who's athletic and has a genetic make that they can attain that side pressure that he got. And I always believe that if I could build to that level of side pressure, but still have the bicep and the hand and the wrist and the back, I could put myself in a lane to consistently be on top of his hand, palm up, winning that match. I've just yet to do that in a tournament or formal setting, but I go back and play those moments out and see how it happened. So then it's just kind of like a, rinse and repeat, or kind of like Devin Laird says, same thing harder, and once you unlock a box, it's same key.
Here's a question. When you were training something like that, and you're very conscious of somebody who's of the genetic makeup and the toolbox that Todd represents, how does that carry over in your mind to when you've got somebody who's dangerous but polar opposite, like Dan Mosier, for example, who's that dead load blast hitter? Because obviously there you've got to. Do you think that the same weaponry would get you through that match? Have you had any experience with Dan? Have you pulled Dan before, or do you know the style?
I pulled Dan once at the last WAL big tournament, not the one that got canceled and happened in
16.
16, yeah. So Dan was on a really good run. He was coming on strong in those days too, and it was me and him to go to the finals A side, and I pulled him, but I think his style is wonderful for me, because he's a guy with a strong hand and wrist that, because of his experience, he's used to being able to side pressure manhandle people, and he commits to grabbing them. And I remember when I lined up with him, he grabbed me, and he really grabbed me. I was like, is this guy going to actually get a hold of me and try to go through me instead of running and slipping and the fuckery people usually pull? And he tried to grab me, manhandle me, and, here comes the dickishness, but it was the easiest match I had that day. And it was because he allowed me, it's not because he was less, but he allowed me to be all of me. He really committed to trying to run at me or through me, and he gave me, I could get all of what I had to get. But, his speed, people say you're not used to that speed, but I'm also made a career of, because of injuries and stuff, I've had to adapt to being a great defensive puller, and I've pulled guys that were equally as fast and without a doubt stronger. Marcio has got one of the most explosive hits to ever come down the pipe.
Pretty good example.
Especially when he's firing on all cylinders.
Mm.
And there's been plenty more. So the yin to the yang of the good hitter is the guy who's, John Brzezinski was never a fast guy, but you didn't beat that guy until you pinned him. A lot of guys got John about here, but they didn't realize that almost winning might as well be 100 million light years away from actually winning.
Who are the five, Rob? Who represent the five biggest or most significant threats to you in the current climate? Obviously, we'll take Todd as a given if he's at that weight class, or you meet at any.
Well, that's a sensitive subject. You'd have to be guys that I know of, because I don't I don't really know the global.
I mean North America.
Look online at the whole country of Bulgaria, including, the milkmen and the grandpas and everybody can tear my ass in half. So the guys that I know, we'll say North America.
Let's go North America. So we'll take Todd Hutchins as a given.
Okay.
And give me another 5 guys that you're conscious of, that are on your radar.
Yeah,
that you're thinking, okay.
Until I actually pull Paul in, I can't say yay nay, because I'm always giving somebody the nod that they're probably even that they're as good as everyone says they are.
Is this in order as well, mate? Is Paul
in order? Okay, so because I have no history, I would say I have a high respect for what I've seen Toulier do to all these other guys when he's healthy, and you're talking 205-pound version. And my only history with him, my only history with Dan could be much better. My only history is winning, and we all know that as soon as you program that win and that little back confidence and experience in my brain, match 2 is very different for me than the unknown. So I'd be more shook going into a match with Paul Lynn than I would with Dan, even if they're different people right now. And I think Craig is more dangerous than both of them for the way I pull and for his build and the WAL pad makeups. I'd say healthy Craig, especially the way he knows how to cheat the angles, and he's got, over 30 years experience. I'd be a fool to say Dan's not in there because of his progression and his hunger. Paul Lynn, Herman's another guy I've only, pulled a couple times, and you're talking, 5-6 years ago. And anyone who doesn't include, we'll say, Storm or Chad Silvers is lying to themselves, because Storm's that guy. Storm's the Roberto Duran of the class. He's a bad motherfucker, and he looks like he's the bridesmaid, when on any other given time frame, depending on where me and Todd Hutchins are, he wins everything. He's got wins on Toulier. He's got wins on basically everyone he's pulled consistently. I think he's beat everybody he's pulled consistently, with the exception of me and Todd Hutchins. So to say he's not in there, and where he falls in there, I'd like to see. I don't know. He might be still the 3rd guy in line. Yeah.
The word on the street is, from the wider set of people that sort of call me and sort of peddle their wares, like, okay, this is what you need to know. You got these guys, and some of the comments valuable and some less so, and ultimately I form my own opinions where I can anyway, but a lot of people have an enormous amount of belief in Dan Mosier at the moment. And that's always interesting, because I haven't seen Dan and Paul Lynn go at it, which would be interesting. I've seen him get some impressive wins. Chad was obviously, that day was impressive, and Dan's undeniably been impressive a number of times. He got a vote of confidence, obviously, from Herman, whose opinion I respect greatly. Herman, in my experience, is serious.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like I said, I don't know where he is. I think his style lends well. I know he's getting a lot of love, but this is a lot of the things I talk about with political correctness. I do think a lot of those guys are, and it's not saying that a guy who watches arm wrestling can't think that Dan's that good because he's going to different tournaments and all over the world and whatever, but I do think when you see a lot of the ones that are just really, strong opinions, they're from that camp. They're from that Southern Pride area. It's a regional thing. How can you say that a guy is going to now run through me when our only experience is me dusting him as easy as dusting could be done? It was my easiest match of the whole tournament. The way he pulls, there is such a thing as having a make and a mold and a style. The old styles make matches. When somebody wants to manhandle me and run through me and not pull fuckery, and that's your lane, but you're allowing me to be in my best lane. I understand if you guys want to say he's better, and I'm sure he is, and I'm sure he's stronger and all these things, but to just chalk it up as he's on the trajectory he's already blown past me. Where's the data? Where is it? I mean, he ducked out of the 95 kilo class when he's a 95 kilo guy. In the Zloty tournament, everybody was sucking ass on the 95 kilo class to be the next Igor's buddy. And he walks around probably cutting to 95, and he cut to 87. That shows me you're the really good Ammy who pulled Ammys just so you get the first place trophy instead of taking a third in the pro class. I mean, you can't run away from that, like, how obvious that is to me.
Yeah, I think it's funny, isn't it? There's definitely a camp of, that. The other day we were on the fix, and some of the guys there, obviously Raymond Schleipins, who's a very knowledgeable lad, he was talking about the Zloty Tour, and he said, look, let's be honest, the Zloty Tour, the last time out wasn't the Zloty Tour, and I do tend to agree with that. That's not really a reflection on Dan, because the one thing you can say about Dan is that Dan's not just done it in Poland. Whether the Zloty Tour was tough, whether it wasn't, sort of an irrelevance in some respects. He's definitely stepped up and he's beaten some good lads this year, and he's beaten them handily. So you got to give him that credit that he looks like he's evolved. Whether or not he's faced people of the caliber you're currently at, in my opinion, when you're on your game, and were at the last time you pulled in the WL, I don't know. I think the age-old styles make matches is the one, really. But the interesting thing's going to be, Dan has also said that he's not necessarily warm to the WL environment. His preference would be PAL because it suits his style of pulling. It suits the tournament pulling. I think that we are looking outside of Dan for the person who's likely to face you next. And I keep arriving at Paul Lynn. Because with the rest of the competition that's there at the moment, in North America at least, taking Herman Stevens out of that equation, because Herman is obviously a little bit of a weirdo, and I can't get him even interested to be involved in WAL, which is weird. And Herman, you're a weirdo, and you need to stop being a weirdo and pull, because that'd be good. Is it just me, or does anybody else think that Herman makes some great matches in WAL? I think Herman is in some bangers, because Herman can arm wrestle.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it.
So for me, I can make a list of matches in my mind, and I think, that's a good match potentially with Herman. That's a good match potentially with Herman. Like at least 5 interesting matches where I'd be watching the event thinking,
until he proves it otherwise, until he smashes the shit out of people or he loses hard. The gauge that you're assessing right now, where you think Herman would be coming in healthy and where you think Puller X would be, could you put him in about 5 good matches? I agree. Yeah. I agree. He's a great arm wrestler, and I think WAL is a testing grounds, because anyone who thinks we don't have some of the best middleweights in the world are fooling themselves, and that's just people being country proud and illogical.
There's certainly some very, very strong lads in the class. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
and for me, everybody in arm wrestling wants to see the good arm wrestling match. They want to see the banging match, and I just think that Herman unlocks numerous.
Yeah, I mean, his stylistically, he checks all the boxes. He's well-rounded. He can pull everywhere, and he's definitely not afraid to grind. And he's got a good energy. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Herman.
And he's extremely intelligent. He's articulate. He doesn't mind talking about it. He can talk about it. Yeah, love the dude. Needs to stop being a weirdo. Yeah. Hashtag get Herman Stevens in the WAL. Anyway, moving on.
We're all sitting here with coffee and pig.
That's where it is, mate. It's all about the pig, all about the coffee. Now, you knew it was coming. It was just how far into the show. 24 minutes in, mate. Have you seen the Ryan Bowen video?
Yeah, I did. Another one of those things that was like Heather plays buffer, and I saw it, and I was surprised because I figured I've been on the radar so long that he'd be chasing a target that was more like social media allowed, more somebody that was getting a little more attention. And I'm a little bit flattered that I'm still relevant, even though I'm in my silence. So it shows that I've done something right in these years. But yeah, I saw the video. I watched it.
You keep track of Ryan's progress and who he's arm wrestling and how well, and no,
because if you watch his video, I mean, one thing I know about Ryan is he's always doing well. And it's always doing more well than the last time he was doing really well. And even when he was doing the most well a well person could be doing, there's a more well you could be doing 6 months later. And if there happens to be an event that his well wasn't as good as the well he thought it was, well, surely there's a reason for it. And that's been corrected. So it's almost like you're arguing, what the fuck? It's like, let's just go for Ryan's story time and we'll talk about the golden goose next and the lady who lived in the shoe. I don't know. I don't know what to believe, but I know his trajectory is always like SpaceX. It's fucking straight up. And if you talk to him next year, he hit a new plateau. He's Levon right now.
That was ace.
SpaceX.
I'm taking a second to sort of digest that.
Yeah, take it in. Just understand that today is here. It's always. It doesn't matter.
I'm going to say for me, it was all about the will thing.
Yeah.
You know, when you went on to the
how well he's doing. I got choked to death by well.
Yeah, just drowning in well ability.
Well, yeah. Well came out of his YouTube video and choked me out.
Now then, a lot of the things that Ryan talks about in terms of where he's getting the benefits and the gains do you see a direct correlation between the style that he is improving in? So he's gone from I couldn't contain Jordan Davis and guys like this, they were causing me issues, to being able to slap him about, contain Jordan easily and so on and so on. And he's got that side pressure. Do you think he's drawing... I'm trying to get to the why you. Apart from the fact that you were the guy with the hammer, which is the obvious one, he's not necessarily saying, I want this match right now. He's talking about, I believe that my level right now would give this guy trouble. I would be ready for this guy. And I know because I spoke to Ryan about this in detail. And he said it's almost like it is a bit of a compliment that obviously he rates you very highly. And you're the guy with the hammer, so you represent the level. Mm-hmm. And he believes that the development in the areas that he's got strong are potentially in areas which should have take you out of your game a little bit. And other people have had success, like Todd, for example.
Well, right. But that brings me back to think that you're the only person making games or tightening up areas. I mean, if we're going to go back to the last time I arm wrestled Todd was 2016. You're talking going on 5 years now, 4.5 years. Mm-hmm. So in that time, 4.5 years. In that time, every match I've had in the straps, every match in my WAL was all straps. I've won all those where that was a problem for me, and they were good strap pullers. The side pressure wasn't as wonky. That's a process, but it's still, even since I pulled Toulier, it's been almost 2 years now. So you're talking to say, if we're going to compare what he's drawing off of somebody he saw in 2016 that lost via side pressure, really straps, to the best middleweight in the world at the time. Well, let's look at your 2016 version, when a 175-pound Justin Bishop was slapping you all over the place. You can't draw off of one person in time frame and not look at yourself, because then your argument's going to be, well, how much have I changed since then? You have no idea. Well, touche, dude. Touche. You don't know what I'm doing here. How do you know I'm not taking all this time and being all I could be? And the old version of me is just a pimp slap of what I am now.
Mm. Did you actually measure with apples back then?
What's that?
Are the apples a new thing?
No, I don't even. That was just a random thing. I knew the apple. An apple is a good feat of strength if you can actually break it. It is a good feat of strength.
I thought it was ace.
But then it was just ad-libbed where I threw in an apple a day keeps the odds away. I was just going to crush an apple because everybody does these hand strength things and not everyone can get their hands on a dynamometer or certain equipment. So I was like, just crush an apple. Now, there's about 1,000 different types of apples. You can get a soft apple, a hard apple, depending on what they are. That apple was pretty stout, but I was in the grip strength world and I knew, like tearing a deck of cards, many different decks, all different levels of hardness. But I tried it, and I just pumped in there an apple a day with the whole Ryan reference thing, but that wasn't for him. It just kind of evolved that way.
Now then, mate, there are areas of the US which are quite open to movement, and we do see that there's quite a bit of activity going on there. If the thing opened up a little bit more over there, would you be in a position to get the cock of the walk back on? Because that was pretty much set to go down just as COVID kicked in and destroyed the world's arm wrestling events, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that was never my event. That was more of me piggybacking on someone else's event to say, why don't we just get, because everybody, that was in a time when everybody was standing loud and proud on top of their pillar going, I should be in WAL. I deserve a shot. Everybody deserves a shot. So I'm like, there's too many of you that deserve a shot. Let's just at least thin down the crowd and see who of all of you shot deservers is most deserving.
Do you think that anybody's been thinned out in that because of what's happened? Because we've seen some of the guys that were on the call have been, involved in matches. We've seen Rackers come out, Brent's out and about doing his thing.
It's hard to say because honestly, I'm not watching as much. I honestly forget who's in there, but I think the same. I think that the guys. I think it'd be fairly predictable for the top, 2 or 3. I think I have an idea of who's where, but then again, I don't know. I don't know what people are doing. I can only surmise. Ryan's the one who's making 180, 200% gains. Me, I hit my max somewhere about 10, 15 years ago, and he knows exactly where I'm at. You can have all the theory you want. None of it's fact.
So, if you look at the roster right now within the World Arm Wrestling League, are you still excited by it in the middleweight division? Do you think that because I get a lot of messages saying, really to spice that up, we need to see Rob pull against some really top-level Europeans. And I know that you've got opinions on that, and I know that there are people you'd love to arm wrestle. Are you still excited by any of the North Americans and the prospect of pulling the North Americans, or do you actually feel in your own mind like you need a new challenge?
Yeah, of course. I think that just anytime you're given the opportunity to step on somebody and silence your naysayers, it just adds to your resume. It adds to your hit list. Yes. But I don't think all hits are equal. I mean, I think if I got the chance to pull one Zoloev or Rustum, it would do far more resume and legacy-wise than beating the top 5 on the current roster.
Yeah. All
back to back. That's not knocking them, but from a global view, I know where I rate our arm wrestlers, and our top 5 might not be far off of those guys. If they're off, it might not be far. It might be very close. But because of who they are and the legacy they've built, you're going to get more notoriety on a global level beating one of their crowned legends than I could beat guys that might be able to beat Rustum. But they don't get the love because, much like me, they're not dominating in Europe either. So if you want to encapsulate that global presence and cement yourself as one of the best of your time, I think that somebody international would be more exciting for me, especially on U.S. soil. And you can't help but get behind your countrymen and, what it would bring. And I think it would, for me, that'd be a bigger task. It'd be something I would take more seriously.
When you look at, the last time we spoke about that, I remember distinctly, there was a comment that came on there and said, guys like Rustam had run through Rob. They beat Rob very easy. My God, recently in the top 8, he was in a war with Tim Bresnan. And Tim's obviously rock solid. Does that kind of thing impress you massively, or do you see yourself, if you were put into a match with Tim, do you think you could do what Rustam did or better with that kind of adversary? Well,
without getting into who can beat who and why,
talking about power comparison.
I've had success with Tim in my early years when he was in his early years, and as a friend, I used to live with Tim Bresnan. And
great guy, incidentally, Tim Bresnan. For those who don't know.
I mean, I lived with him. He helped me get on my feet when I was in a shitty spot, and nothing but love for the guy. I went and trained with him when this whole WAL thing was, midway, and it was after he had pulled Rustum I think it was the first or second time. I don't know, but he had good amount of experience. And he told me unequivocally that day he thought I would beat Rustum without a problem. And that's hitting the hook, top rolling, what he could do with my hand and wrist, not showing me love. One thing I like about Tim is he's like me. He'll tell you the truth. It may hurt, but you know what? You got to respect the guy that he's gruff and true. And he told me, he goes, right now you beat Rustum. People will look at the fact that Rustum ran through Todd Hutchings, but again, that's the style. Todd was allowing Rustum to get everything he needed to run. What happens when I put Rustum palmed up on his fingertips out here, much like Tim did, and then that hook falls into a place that's kind of in this spot? It's a very different game than somebody who's kind of shooting the hook, and you get a little guy with a little arm with all that lat drag that just kind of goes, wow. When you take all that away from somebody, people are always going to naysay. I'll beat the guy, and somebody will say there's a reason I didn't beat him. They'll say he got roughed up at customs, or he got jet lag, or, I'm starting to learn that sometimes there's just no winning.
And the next one that came into us as a question to put to you, and I said I was going on with you, was people wanted to get your opinion on Michael Todd Levan Saganashvili. How do you think the match goes down? Have you got a score prediction? If the match was to take place, which recent events suggest that it might be a while yet, so don't hold your breath. But let's say back end of the year, something came to fruition. Hypothetically, how do you see the match, and who do you see as the favourites, and why? And if we're talking, let's say we're talking 6 rounds.
I've had a flip-flop in opinion. And I used to say that I think because of how he pulls in the straps, that he manages to flatten out people with good wrists. And even if it takes him 2 or 3 rounds, he'll get out there and, he's not going to pull him any other way than the classic what we've seen in the last couple of years. Michael. He's not going to all of a sudden shoulder roll him. He's not going to top roll him. Yep. He's going to do what we know he's going to do. The game there is he's going to have to get around his hand and get Levan to basically like a death fall, right? He's going to have to get Levan to fall into that trap and go for the pin and crack his own wrist. And then when he cracks his wrist and starts going for the pins, it starts to degrade from there, and you see with every arm wrestler, they go downhill. Now, my original thought months back was Michael will win that match. It may cost him 2 in the beginning, and Michael might go 4-2 as soon as the wrist cracks. But after seeing how some of the people have done, like Nick Zenas and people with very good wrists, but I don't think they're quite Levan. I think Levan would be able to seal it before that fatigue level set in. Because also Levan is not only maybe stronger, but he's also a super dedicated athlete, so you're going to get a high, good heavyweight. This is what he does for a living. Levan is an arm wrestler. To think he's just a big dude, I'm pretty sure he's going to be comfortable coming into a match and pulling for a minute, and then taking a break, and then coming back for a minute. Now, maybe not because he's so much better than the people who doesn't have matches that long, but I think his wrist, I've always said if somebody could turn Michael remotely palm up, remotely shut down that line that comes like this. If they can take it and just crank that palm a little bit, instead of going back with him like everyone's so salivating over to do with Crazy George. The guys who beat Crazy George, like Anthony D'Antonio, Denny Dubray, I think even Mike Solera's got a win on him. If they could resist the temptation of taking his hand like this, and they both kind of get in this weird spot, and palm up him, use that really strong wrist to palm up, and now you have him like this, that King's move angle kind of fades. And I think Levan loves that. And I think he'll get it. And I think that it would be too far gone by time. I mean, look at how good Alexei Vovoda's wrist is. 2 different people. Now, Michael's much better than he was when he pulled Alexei, but because he couldn't get those angles on Alexei's wrist.
I don't think he went for him though with Alexei. Back to be fair to Mike at that time, I don't think the King's move was a thing for him at all.
No, it wasn't. But that level of this kind of curl with Alexei's hand and wrist control was so powerful that sometimes it only takes like a 5%, like, where Devin was right there at the cusp of that control, and then he kind of got a little eager and pushed a little bit. It was Nick Zena, same thing. They were right there. So you take someone like Levon, who might just have that couple percent to take it from flat to that. In my opinion, if I was to bet now after the things that I've seen in my gut, I'd say Levon.
Now, interestingly, mate, the other day you were on the call with Devon. And for those who haven't seen that, go over to Devon Larratt's channel, check out Rob and Devon on their entertaining conversation on there. But I noticed one of the questions there that didn't get answered was, did you feel like Devon, the same version of Devon that we saw pull against Dave Chafee, could do anything with Levon Saganashvili?
All right. Well, I'll sidestep that because I'm not sure of the person who pulled Dave Chafee, but I do know the one who pulled Wagner Bortolato, which was the biggest I've ever seen Devin. I think he rolled in at almost 280.
Pretty much same size.
Yeah, but the problem is, I don't know where Devin's top roll is these days. But also, I do believe Devin's long enough and committed enough and has the joint strength and the balls to dig in there that I think that if he could knife in when he's big and strong and that top angle no longer works, you kind of get in that weird wrist to wrist where someone kind of carves at you and you're trying to come over them and you fall. I don't think Levon's hook is, it could be a top 10 in the world, but I don't think it's as dominant as his wins look. Like, I think that he could lose if he gets trapped in a hook. Mm-hmm. And I do see that it's plausible. I'd be a fool to say that I would. If somebody called me up and was like, Devin Larratt rolled into Dubai at 280 and just smacked Levon around, I wouldn't go crazy and try to scratch my head about it. I wouldn't be surprised.
How do you see the Dave Chafee match with Levon, mate? Do you think that's
I think it's much closer than people think. Mm-hmm. I do think it's closer than people think. I think the problem is I think Levon's a little better up top.
Do you think he'll gain the control over Dave?
Yeah, I think it'll be similar to not as much top as Vitali, but I think he's got a stronger arm. So I think you will see Dave freeze him even with his wrist cracked. I think if it did turn a little bit, I think Dave's a lot more in that match. I think Dave could beat him, as do I think that, like Denis Cyplenkov, when he was running hot, would beat him. I mean, we saw just with, of course, Prudnik is a super exceptional athlete, but we saw just the playing, you get the gauge of power, where Levon couldn't really move Prudnik in the top 8 when they were messing around, and it kind of coiled. Some of that could be propaganda, it could be for TV. Do I believe that if they coiled, that Levon could beat Prudnik? No, I don't. So I think it's much like the Clev Dean thing right now. People are trying to figure out, he's not good he's good everywhere, but he's great in a lane. Mm. So it's like, who can uncode, and as soon as somebody does it, like when John lost to Cleve, and he goes, fuck this guy, and he kind of cinches him up, I think that'll happen to Levon.
It's interesting. The other day I had Krasi Kostadinov on for the second show, and he said during that interview that he was of the opinion that Dave Chafee, the Dave Chafee that he pulled in WAL, is the strongest arm he has ever arm wrestled. He said, I can tell you without doubt, but during the interview and after the interview at length, he said, Dave Chafee, his arm is the strongest arm I have ever arm wrestled against in my life. And
he walks over there and pulls only the highest tournaments, and he always finds himself in the money rounds, so he only pulls the highest guys. Krasi's pulled Vovoda, Arsen Liliev, Pushkar, Cyplenkov. He's pulled everybody. So
on Levon.
He's got a lot of experience, Levon.
Wins on Levon.
Yes. And where you see the angle where Levon got hung was with Krasi, was when Krasi didn't try to fight the hand and the wrist. He cinched him up, and he sacrificed the position, but he landed it and eventually kind of choked the life out of him. And I think if somebody was confident in their hook and their arm, which I think Devin is a good example of that Devin who was doing, the 170 pound kind of like testing that elbow curl thing he does that I'd be scared I'd blow up a tendon.
Yeah.
But, I wouldn't be surprised. I do think that right now Levon's like the guy that's on top, but I don't really believe that he's ahead of the curve in all ways. He's not the complete guy. He's really good and he's great. But I think in this range, people can make him fight that fight that'll expose him.
I think Levon's got a lot of, certainly he's a guy you like to see do, I like to see do well, because he's such a great guy. He's just a nice man, he's a great bloke.
I struggle with
Latin. I
struggle with all that though, because it's so hard. I just watched a video yesterday, the evolution of Levon. And, as an adult, he was 85 kilograms, 90 kilograms? Now he pulled top 8 at 190 kilograms? 100 fucking kilograms.
190? Jesus, I didn't know he got that big.
Or, no, what did he say, 180 in one of the interviews? He was over 400 pounds for basically, in the beginning of the video, he was under 200, and then when he pulled top 8, he was over 400. So you're talking a full middleweight of gain. People are going to hate. People are going to be tired of the conversations. People are fucking tired of it. That's fine. Be tired of it. Hate me for bringing it up. But I cannot, at this point in time, we might as well start building T-800s and having them arm wrestle each other like battle bots and seeing which robotics, hydraulics blow up first. What are we doing here? I can't give somebody's accolades respect when their frame and structure was probably not different than mine, maybe even smaller, and now you're 400 pounds dominating the shit out of the world. Sorry. I have a hard time loving that.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, I'm not sorry. I just have a hard time loving it. Is he good? Sure. But, fucking 200 pounds on a person is asinine to me.
Well, it's interesting because we were talking about in the Fix Show 50 about the role of leagues within World Arm Wrestling at the moment. And one of the comments there from Ramon's Live Pins was that he'd speak to Igor Mazarenka, and Igor said to him that he was trying to create the UFC, which is obviously admirable. And it'd be great if we could get to a situation where the sport was that big and that pronounced. What I would say, though, is it'd be interesting because at some point, if you're going to get to that, you're going to get the sport to be universally recognised, as I know that the World Arm Wrestling League would like to do, and the PAL, it sounds like, would like to do also. You would have to, at some point, cross a bridge where you'd look at the PED situation. It would need to come. To have major sponsors involved and so on and so on, you would need to have those discussions. Now, that could make some, for a real changing of the guard, couldn't it? If you get to a situation where people are no longer able to take performance-enhancing drugs or would be tested rigorously for it like they are in the UFC.
Yeah, but are they really testing the UFC, or do they have scapegoats? I think that because of the money and because of the sponsorship will bring opportunity. And opportunity brings more reason to take higher risk. And now all you're doing is creating a lane that people invest more in how to get away with it.
Yeah, but there are examples of the top athletes getting caught, though. We've seen John Jones got. I think
they use somebody as a scapegoat. I don't know if you follow American football, but a year or two ago we had on the Patriots here, Julian Edelman popped positive for steroids, and he got ostracized for it. And I'm like, you think he's the only fucking guy in the NFL that's banging steroids? They're all on him. I'm not like sideline Harry just calling everybody a steroid user because they got a musculature, but let's be honest. They are. If they could take their 40-yard dash and go from 4.8 to 4.5, and their contract can go from a $1 million a year guy to a $20 million a year guy, guess what they're doing? It's just, all you got to do is beat the test. I don't know that you'll get rid of it. What I would think that the lane would be, and all these guys that want to pull me and call me out, how's this? Blue Bowens, Mosers, Krasys, Rustums, any of them. Fuck it. I'll pull you for all the money. Starting today, take a test monthly, and then for 6 months. We'll set the term for 6 months. Take a monthly test at an unbiased, real place. Test clean for 6 months. Pull it out of the funds that go to the prize money and put up real money. 10, 20 grand. Pull for 10, 20 grand. clean pissing or blood test for 6 months, I'll pull anyone you put in front of me, including fucking Levon. That's the only way testing works. If you do it really unbiased, not the cheated out WADA like Icarus, where people are trying to get their athletes through, not the 1 day testing and they got all their gains and then piss clean for a day. Test them randomly, monthly, do it for a year straight, and then get the clean motherfuckers together, and then see. You want to match with me? I'm really not hard to find. Chuck Ryder pushed hard enough, and he found me. Ryan Bowen.
Chuck Ryder did push hard. He did it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. All these guys can find me. I'm not really hiding under a rock. There's just nothing going on right now. But if you want to take a big match, I'll take a big match with anybody. Let's piss clean for a year and then see who's really where all their chest pumping is.
It's a big statement, brother. I love that.
And I stand by it 100%. Line it up and we'll start the pissing today. And we'll set a date.
Do you think that it'd make any difference then? If let's say, for example, the World Arm Wrestling League came back 2022 and they say, you know what, we're back, we're bigger, we've got investors, and the sport's going clean. Let's say hypothetically they did that. They were going to start a testing program, educate their athletes, and then get everybody testing regularly, and they were on tested contracts. Do you think that would make an enormous difference, or would you be sort of skeptical that people would still get around the tests?
I do think people would make attempts to get around it. I also think that it would take a couple people getting popped and humiliated that would really rock the landscape, but the landscape would be different. There'd be guys you never heard of rising to the top, guys that were superstars falling down 2 classes below them. If they really went clean, if people really went clean,
yep.
I'm not under the guys that's like, oh, you're better than me just because you did steroids, or you beat me just because you did steroids. And people who want to sit there and go, oh, they don't really work. Motherfucker, yes, they do. They're a performance-enhancing drug, and especially somebody who knows what they're doing. They take you from here to here. I've seen it at least 1,000 times. So, yes, they do. And the landscape, it's rampant in the WAL. It's rampant in the WAF. People say, oh, WAF is a tested event. No, it's not. It tests selective guys. And when the test changed, all our legends of the sport got popped. Arson got popped. Rustam got popped. Gennady got popped. Guys who were doing it for a decade got popped, who thought they knew what how to hide it protocol was. So just because every single athlete, even in a recreational level, come on. Yeah, it would change the whole landscape. Guys that are number 20 guys right now might be number 3.
Yeah. So basically the claim that you're making there is that if you were facing even such as Rustam, your respect goes down a little bit because of the fact that you're talking about a guy that's obviously has a history or a track record of using PEDs.
Well, he never slowed down during that getting popped. Well, like, we'll take Arsen Liliev, for instance. He slowed down. Arsen Liliev went into that goddamn exile looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he came out of that. He did a video. He looked like Grimace from Burger King. Now you get Rustam. He got popped, and he showed up getting ready for top 8, 25 pounds heavier than when he got popped. Stacked. That's a guy that's 150-pound frame. I mean, I could fall on it all I want, and I understand people do what they do, and they make choices, and I could go and do it, and I could do that, but I have a hard time when somebody, use them to a point where they grow a whole other human being like Levon. I mean, when your success is no longer your own, it's because you got here. It's like those people that sell workout programs. They go, you want to look like me? And they're showing their abs, and they're showing their body, and they're like, follow my routine. Do burpees and eat fucking egg whites. And it's like, no, that's not what you did. You hit a wall, you hit a plateau, and you ended up doing your Winstrolls and T1400, whatever the fuck people take. You know what I'm talking about. But apparently that program wasn't enough for you. They say, oh, well, just persevere. No, perseverance didn't work for you. So from my respect, I could say where you stand. You're one of the greats. You're one of the best. Everyone recognizes it. But don't ask me to pat you on the back. That's all.
Who
and
are
I'll
the
take
guys?
Anybody if they want to be clean.
Who are the guys that you rate as your all-time greats based on that view, mate? Because it must be very different to a lot of people's. Because obviously some of the established all-time greats, you'd have to say, probably fall into that category where they're.
In some of my opinions on some of the greats that I thought were clean, I learned not by speculation, but by factual, they really weren't. I'd have to say, because of what the conversations we've had, Alan Fisher, I'm pretty sure he was a guy who won all the high-level tournaments of his time, much like Cobra Rhodes. Unfortunately, a lot of the guys I really looked up to heavyweights I knew crossed the line, but we can't deny that if they did, they still had a legacy before they did. And I'm not witch hunting here. Don't send death threats to my house. But I know Ron and John had a legacy long before. If they did dabble with replacement or even then some, fine. But I do know that they had a legacy even before that. So even if they were like the 2006 John was better than he's ever been, he still had that legacy of John Brzezinski before that version. And so John, Ron, Cobra, the guys you hear about, Engen, some of the little guys, but I'm not sure what their country's like Andreas Runstrom's and, Dave Patton. I don't know what Dave Patton did, but I can only go by what I hear from sources of people that are, I trust and people I speak very frankly with. And there's probably a lot more. Clev Dean might have been one. Why the fuck did that guy have to do juice? He was born at 200 pounds.
Cleve was an absolute monster.
Yeah. So I never got to meet him, actually. It's sad. But there's probably a lot of guys, but not that many. Really, there's not that many. And in the current landscape of the world, and this isn't a pat on the back, I don't think that there's many natural guys at all. And the ones that are, you hear about it because they're shithouse about what's going on. Like Luke. Luke Kent's like, rah! Like he wants to kill the world over it. Yeah. Because he's a guy that talent-wise might very well be a very top guy. Yeah. I mean, I don't think Sam is either. Sam just probably had his number, but I don't know. I know it's very prevalent. I know that it changes the landscape of everything.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the hour mark in this show with Rob Vigeant Jr. Real talk with R.V.J. Rob, thank you as always, mate. Super entertaining, super engaging as always. And I'm sure we ain't going to leave it that long till we get on here the next time. Ladies and gents, just on that note, if you've got any questions that you want us to put to Rob in our next Real Talk with R.V.J., put them in the comment section below, ladies and gentlemen. Put them in there. And I don't know whether I mentioned just before the pig's mask fell off behind us and he started breathing a little bit of unclear. I didn't notice that happen, mate, but I just did over your shoulder there because it made me think about the beginning of the show. I don't know whether I mentioned about this brand new T-shirt. Woohoo! Yeah, baby. Check that out, eh?
Is that Jason Reamer?
No comment, mate. You have to buy one to work it out. But you'll see, the hardcore arm wrestling shirt, probably going to be about 50 of these made in all sizes. Ladies and gentlemen, check it out. Link in the description. Or the fluffers. If this is your first time to the Supernatural Strength channel, please like, share, subscribe. And until we see you next time, from myself and the mighty R.V.J, World Arm Wrestling League hammer holder, take it easy, peeps.
What grabs your eyes on that, if anything?